Hey everyone, Eric here from Engramic.org, and today we're talking about Hatch, which is the project management tool for Python that we use here at Engramic on our open source project. It's a completely priceless tool. It does so many things. We use it for linting, for making builds. We use it for static analysis and type checking. We use it for testing. All of these things in one simple tool. So today we're going to show you some real world examples of how we use it, and then we'll get into some of the details of how to configure your pyproject.toml file so that you can use it in your project. Some of the documentation in Hatch can be a little bit sparse or might take you some time to figure it out. So hopefully this video will save you a lot of time. So let's get into it. Before we do, let me just take 15 seconds to tell you about Engramic. Engramic is an open source community with like-minded people that want to do great things in generative AI and natural language processing. We have a really cool framework that includes advanced context management and long-term memory. It makes developing for Gen AI really fun, and if you want to join, you can click the link below. Okay, so I'm in the root directory. I'm going to talk about virtual environments and how Hatch makes them work. So I already have a few that are configured over here in my uh, pyproject.toml file, and we can dive into this in more detail a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to type this command and list what virtual environments are already configured. So I'll type hatch, env, and show. And so you can see I've listed default, dev, test, and docs. These are all different virtual environments, and I switch between them depending on the types of tasks I'm trying to do. I think it's probably obvious. Test is for testing, and docs are for generating documentations. But the whole point here is that I can only bring in the dependencies that I need that are important to me for doing that task, and I don't have to have, for example, my MK docs dependencies with my test virtual environment. It doesn't show it here, but default is listing that there are no dependencies. But if you look at my TOML file, you can see I do have a handful. It's just not listing them there. So trust that they're there. And I want to just show that there's inheritance between these virtual environments. So dev is inheriting the virtual environment of default. So that's really helpful. It says it down here. If you look at template equals dev, that's how I inherit and then add a few more dependencies for dev. And similarly, test is derived from dev, and docs is derived from, I believe, dev as well. Let's see, it's actually derived from default. So that's how I have the virtual environments. Let me show you how I can switch between virtual environments using the shell command. So hatch shell, and then the name of the virtual environment, and I'm going to this time enter into default, will switch your virtual environment and activate that virtual environment. So by typing hatch shell, I've entered into the default environment, and I can type pip list and show that there's a certain set of dependencies that match what I've already given it in the TOML file. So let's exit that by typing exit. And this time I'm going to enter into dev. But at the same time, I'm going to add a new dependency into dev. So let me go find my dev here, and I'm going to add the dependency cowsay. All right, and I'll save that. And this time I'll type hatch shell dev. And when I did, you can see here, it's actually pulling in that new dependency that I just created. And if I type pip list, I have a bunch of more dependencies in this particular virtual environment because, well, dev needs more. And now you can see that cowsay is listed as here as well. It detected it when I hit hatch shell that I have a new dependency, and so it installed that. So now in terms of creating dependencies and switching environments, it's very easy. You can use that hatch shell and then get into your virtual environment and then just type exit when you want to leave and go into a different environment. Okay, so now that you've seen how to switch virtual environments and update a dependency, let's talk about how to get Visual Studio Code to use the virtual environments that you have. Uh, I'm going to show a command, which is hatch env find, and I'll just choose dev as the virtual environment, hit enter, and it shows me a path. So that is where the virtual environment is stored. And I need to tell Visual Studio Code to use that path. So over in Visual Studio Code, I'll type Control-Shift-P. And for me, I have Python select interpreter, but you'd have to maybe type that if it's not already at the top of your recently used list. Type select interpreter, And you would go into enter interpreter path if you've never configured it before. And I already have it listed because it's part of my recent. So you take the path from the virtual environment and you say enter interpreter path, you navigate and you select the python.exe. And now you've configured Visual Studio Code to use that virtual environment. So whichever ones you create or configure, or if you want to just look at them with the show command, once you see what they are, then you can go back into Visual Studio, and through that Control Shift P, you can go and find the virtual environment that you want to use so that when you hit run, you'll be using that virtual environment. Okay, you're doing great. So let's move on. So I'm going to move on to both formatting and testing. And these are already configured and ready to go. So in order to do that, I will type hatch. Notice that I'm in the default, but you can do this from other virtual environments as well, but I'm in the default right now. So I'll type hatch fmt. When I run this, I get a whole bunch of static errors in my code that I need to fix. You can use what Hatch has set for you right out of the box, but you can also go in and configure. There's a few things that I've turned off as far as warnings that I don't want to see, but that's it. Hatch.format. Let me make this window a little bit wider for you. I have a handful of things. This is a really great way to get better at Python and realize little mistakes that you might be making that you might not even realize. Using Hatch format will help you catch all of those. So I'm going to now move on to testing. So I type hatch test. And when you do, Hatch is configured to use one version of Python first. And so it ran the test. I have a handful of unit tests and integration tests, not a whole lot right now, but just a handful. And it ran that by running hatch test. And the test virtual environment has a matrix as well. So you can configure additional to run through the test with additional versions of Python. So I have it configured for a couple different versions. So I'll type hatch test. This time I'll add a -a at the end, and it will run through multiple versions of Python, running my unit and integration tests for each of those. Great, super great. I use these all the time before I commit code and certainly before I push it. But this is highly encouraged for you to use, and it'll make you a better developer in Python. Okay, so another helpful feature in Hatch is to use it to run various scripts that you might have. So I've got a couple set up that I'm going to show. So the first one, I'll do hatch run, and then you name the name of the script that you've defined. So actually, let's take a look at it real quick. Here's Visual Studio. I'm going to run this command right here, web server, but notice that I'm in the default virtual environment, so this won't work, and then I'll show that it does. So if I do hatch run, and then it's web underscore server. Of course, I couldn't find it because I'm not in the right virtual environment. So let me do hatch shell dev. And this time I'll run that same test. Oops, it doesn't recognize tab up because of the virtual environment. But if I type hatch run web underscore server, there we go. Now my web server is running. Very simple. You can take a look at this script again. It's just put right here in the scripts for the environment dev. This is the key right here, is where we've listed the environment. Let me exit that. And I'm going to exit the virtual environment. This time I'm going to go into test. And inside test, right here, I have these dependencies. And I have this particular script, which is I use for type checking. So let's run that. So that's hatch run type check. And I have a lot of work to do here too. So a lot of type check errors, but now I have them and I have this all in one convenient place. So yes, you can set it up for whatever you need to do and whatever things you'd like to do. You can have all of these different scripts set up to make your life easier, to automate and save time. All right, for the last part of this video, I just want to show you the TOML file, and you can pause this and look at it in greater detail, and I'll zoom in so you can see. Most of these configurations came from the default when you create a hatch and install it and then create a brand new project. It'll create most of these scripts for you automatically. But you can take a look at some of the things that I have, and in case you want to check the syntax against problems that you're having. These are, again, my different environments. That's my test, and I've got my dev and I got scripts, and you can see the dependencies. I'll just scroll through so you can see. All right. I hope that helps. Sometimes it's hard to find exact syntax of what you're looking for, and whatever it is that you're searching for, I hope you found it here. All right, so that's it for now. That's the gist of what Hatch does and how I use it. I didn't cover the fact that you can use it for publishing, which is convenient. I can use it for building. It's a great tool to add into your CI/CD process. And overall, it's a great way to start a project. I'm started looking at different types of systems when I started this open source project, and I'm really glad I went with Hatch. And I can't wait to see it grow. Clearly, it's on the newer side, and there's some spots in the documentation that I'm sure will improve over time. Overall, it's useful, but it's takes a little time to find everything you're looking for. So I hope this video helps you. And if you liked it, please subscribe because I'm going to be putting out more as I choose different tools for the open source project with Engramic. And again, please take the time to come check us out, take a look at this project. I can't wait to see more community members join us in developing this great tool. It's such an amazing time for software development, and I'm really excited to see what people who are willing to jump on the wave of automation that we're getting with Gen AI to see where it takes them. And I hope I can be a part of that through this open source project and videos like this. All right, that's it for now. See you later and good luck and enjoy using Hatch.